I want to ask about the expected drop in vehicle prices. Is that something that is across the board that we're seeing in the industry, or is that specific to what you're seeing at Ford?
No, I think it's across the industry. We're seeing it all around the world. You know, after COVID, all vehicle prices really went up. But with the acceleration of EVs, as well as inventories normalizing for customers and dealers, we're seeing the prices come down across the globe. And affordability is a big concern for customers.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you, of course, have some new model launches that will be coming up in the years to come. But in the meantime, it's a matter of managing through this interim period. And during this interim period, there are a lot of question marks over tariffs. The tariffs that President Trump had planned to impose on Mexico and Canada have been pushed out by a month. How does the company plan to take advantage of this 4-week delay that was announced earlier this week? Will you be stockpiling inventory, for instance, to get ahead of that?
Well, I think Ford is among the best industrial companies at scrambling. We have the largest U.S. footprint of any car company. You can imagine we're increasing our component supplies, both at the company and our suppliers, and we're adjusting both our Mexico as well as our U.S. plants to make sure nothing crosses the border. I think longer term is the bigger concern. These kind of tariffs, especially in these two countries, are very significant, and if they persist beyond months, you know, we could see billions and billions of dollars of pressure on the industry, lost jobs, lots of impacts to communities and our ecosystem in the industry. And that's what we're talking to the administration about and congressional leaders.
So what kind of communications have you had with specifically with the White House officials about either tamping down some of these potential tariffs or assuming that Trump does go through with them, how, if at all, the auto industry either could be compensated or in some way have that impact mitigated?
Well, actually, we spoke as an industry, Mary, myself, John Elkin from Stellantis. We all kind of said the same thing, which is 4 years ago, we committed to the USMCA tariff requirements, and all companies have done their job to make sure our vehicle and components are USMCA compliant, and we asked for those to be exempt because it's a trade agreement that we all agreed to actually with the Trump administration. We think that that's only fair. Look, right now, this tariff as proposed is a windfall for South Korean and Japanese companies who can import millions and millions of vehicles without these tariffs. Meanwhile, we have USMCA compliant vehicles and components that are susceptible to this, which will have all this devastating impact. So what we're asking for is a reasoned policy around tariff that's not just these two countries, and we understand the pressures on the border and illegal drugs, but it's more comprehensive. We also have to work through CO2 policy as well as tax policy with the IRA.
So what is your strategy then to navigate this? I mean, this isn't going away, whether it's 25 or something less. This specter is certainly a big part of the president's playbook to address the issues that he wants to resolve here. You can't just up and move a factory overnight, Jim. So what exactly are you strategizing now with your team to make sure that not only you're producing the cars you need to produce, but you're producing them at a cost that's reasonable to you and, more importantly, reasonable to the customer?
Well, first of all, Ford is in a very fortunate situation. We decided many years ago to have an outsized footprint in the U.S. So our manufacturing footprint, the number of vehicles that we make, 80% of our vehicles sold in the U.S. are made here. All of our transmissions, most of our engines. So we have a really big advantage compared to our competitors. But there are optionality that we can make. And look, we've localized a lot of battery plants and EV production in Tennessee and Kentucky because the production tax credit is there. So we're really asking the administration, please preserve the production tax credit. Let's have a reasoned tariff approach. And most of all, let's have reasonable CO2 targets that are in line with what customers are actually buying.
Do you have spare capacity inside the U.S. right now of significance?
No. No, we are maxed out in the U.S. As I said, we're the largest U.S. producer. We export more cars. A lot of people don't realize that Ford exports a lot of cars outside the U.S. We don't have a lot of excess capacity. A little bit, and we're taking advantage of that, and that's why we're building new capacity in Ohio and Tennessee and Kentucky for batteries and these new EVs that will be coming out in the next couple of years. That's why we're investing in the U.S.
Tariffs are clearly on everyone's mind, and that's something your CFO has made, in her statement as well. And the guidance that you offer does not include the potential impact of policy changes by the White House. Once we do get the actual tariffs announced and imposed, how quickly can Ford come out with some specifics, quantify the impact, and provide a new forecast? Is that something that you intend to do?
Of course. I mean, we're always transparent. I will be able to say, though, in our guidance, we can handle a couple weeks of tariffs. If it goes beyond that, obviously, it will be billions and billions of incremental profit headwinds for the company. So, I think the most important thing is having a productive discussion with the D.C. leaders, the Trump administration, congressional leaders, about what this could do to our industry, what it means for U.S. jobs. And, they ran on a campaign of making the auto industry stronger. And that's what we expect out of them as policymakers. We have a lot of policy decisions to make in the coming year. As I said, CO2, tax policy, and we believe that this administration, congressional leaders, are going to back the U.S. industry, companies like Ford that have doubled down on the U.S.
Right. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about your EV business as well. The EV strategy clearly in overhaul mode. Your more affordable models that go further on a single charge won't really be available for 2 years. And Ford is kind of unusual in that you do break out your EV profits in your financial reports. When will you have visibility on those affordable models that go further on a single charge in terms of being able to really turn around that business?
Well, look, we made the decision. We've been number 3 to Tesla in the U.S. EV sales for 3 years now. We've been number 2 for 3 years, and we're also number 3 on hybrid. So we know a lot about these customers. We decided a couple years ago, based on what we heard from customers, that we really needed to redo our EV lineup. So we made that decision a couple years ago. We canceled a couple models. Those vehicles are in development now. We would rather grow profitably than grow. And that's what we're deciding on. So this next couple of years, we're number 2 to Tesla, a long way below them, but we scaled to 100,000 unit plus for a couple of years now. We want to wait until those new vehicles come out in a couple of years, as you said, that will really transform our Model E profits. They're designed differently. They're going to be manufactured different. They have a different supply chain. We've really learned a lot from Tesla, from the Chinese, from a lot of people on how differently we need to design these EVs to be profitable.
So Ford is committed to a long-term EV strategy then?
Absolutely.
What about?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, we see the people who buy EVs, they don't go back to combustion. They have very high level of satisfaction with the vehicle. It's a small part of the industry in the U.S., only 8%, but it's growing. But the only way it's going to grow in a sustained way if it's a profitable business for us. And that's why we had to completely redesign our vehicle and our approach.